And I think I am recording. I hope I'm recording. Not that the best screen, I can see it. And then I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. You're sharing your screen. All right. So Jupiter and Saturn through the houses. Okay. So the symbols for Jupiter and Saturn, they're kind of reversed. If you notice that, you can flip one upside down and it's almost like the other one. So we're going to note that in their symbolism, and I think we talked about this before, you know, think of, instead of this being like a fancy curly Q, think about this as being just a half circle. So it's a half circle would be like the moon, right? It's half. And then this is the cross of matter. So in Jupiter, the moon or the intuition or that intuitive side is above the cross of matter. We talked about that. Spirit is above the cross of matter. And then here in Saturn, it's below, that spirit is below the cross of matter. It's, you know, you got to do the task. You got to do the hard part. You got to do what it takes. You got to put the structure in. But, you know, these two form a really neat pair in that, I mean, they're right next to each other in the orbits, but one is expansion and one is contraction. But, you know, you've got to have a kind of a push-pull on that. You know, it's the odd couple kind of. It's like Jupiter's goes, oh man, I got this great idea. First, we got to go do this, and it sounds so awesome, and it's all excited, and Saturn's getting excited. But then Saturn's going like, well, do you have money? And do you have a plan? Do you know the people that you're going to talk to? Do you have any idea of this, what direction where you're going to find this kind of stuff? So they need each other. You know, Saturn would just be totally dull, boring, waiting for something to do. And then Jupiter would just be spinning it, you know, running, chasing its tail. So they kind of make each other work. So that being said, did I have that first? I guess I'll get there. Let me give you this one first. So Jupiter and Saturn balance each other out in a dynamic pattern, a bit like breathing in and out. And we both need expansion and contraction, optimism and realism, and things tend to go pear-shaped when we let either side, you know, get out of control. So at best, the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction offers an opportunity for change and to integrate the best of the old with the new. On a personal level, you may experience both expansion and contraction in the Aquarius area of your chart, especially now with what we're going to be moving into, and I'll explain. So this will be a good time to review your goals and look for opportunities to grow and learn. Both of those. Look at where you find meaning and social purpose and how you contribute to society and connect with others in a productive way. And let's look at where they are in your chart. But before, we're just going to go back a second. And I want to tell you about this cycle. So as they go through space, as they go through the houses, every 20 years, they align. Let me back up a second. Jupiter is closer to the sun, so its orbit's going to be faster. So it is a big planet, and it takes 12 years to go around the whole zodiac, where at the sun, it takes, you know, it's 1 year, right? I mean, the way we see it, you know, it's like it's your birthday a year, right? That's that cycle of the sun. Jupiter would take 12 years to go all the way around. So in 1 year, it goes through one sign, 1 year, one sign per year, Jupiter. So this last year, it's been in Capricorn the whole year. And the orbit of Saturn takes 29 years to go around the sun. Jupiter is 12, Saturn is 29. 29 years. All right, so that means Saturn is in a sign for 2.5 years. Move that over. 2.5 years to 1 year. Okay, so it's like 2.5 times more. So 2.5 years to 1 year. So that means every 20 years they will line up again. And then there'll be, you know, Jupiter speeds ahead, and then it reaches its halfway, you know, it'll reach, you know, points of opposition in square which is interesting because at the 5 years, it'll be a square. At the 10-year mark, it'll be an opposition. And at the 15, it'll be the square coming back to the conjunction, and then the conjunction at 0 or 20. Okay. Everybody with me? If you're not, tell me. Okay. So I'm going to try to describe this like a cycle within a cycle. So the orbits. So one is going like that. Let me go with it. One is going like that, and the other one is going slower, right? And then it takes like 20 years for them to catch up. All right, got that. Now, there is a big cycle. I'm going to try to give you the next rung out. So now they are going to be in the same element for 200 years. So I told you that that means that they conjunct in the same element. Like right now, they're going to conjunct this week, and they're right now. This is why I wanted to do this now, because both of them are at 29 degrees and some odd minutes, and Saturn is just a teeny bit ahead. It's like 29, 48.6. I'll look it up exactly, and then Jupiter is like 29.1. It's just a little teeny bit behind, but they're both at 29. So Saturn this week, and on the 17th December, it goes into Aquarius, 0 degrees. Boop. And then a day and a half later, 2 days later, on the 19th, depending on where you are on the Earth, then Jupiter goes in. Boop. And then they're both at 0 degrees Aquarius. Okay, this is very significant because as they go around and they make these conjunctions, they're in that same element for 200 years. Then they change elements. And right now we're at the precipice of them changing elements. They are now, this week, right now, as we speak, changing into the next element. They're going from Earth, and they're going to conjunct in air. They're going to conjunct in Aquarius, which is an air sign. Just let that sink in just a second. All right, now they're going to be doing those movements like I've shown you, and every 20 years they'll be in a different air element, all the way around. Okay, they'll be in the air elements round and round. It takes 200 years to go through that all. Then it will go into the next element. So there'll be water, fire, earth. We're coming out of Earth, we're going into air, and then next 200 years will be water. Then we start again, fire. So 4 elements at 200 years, that's 800 years to complete the whole cycle. Capiche? Now, one more step. There's 3 sets of signs of 800 years. So it takes 2,400 years to go through the whole zodiac of all of them. Boom, ba doom, doom. That whole, this one would be the one that would take 2,400 years to go all the way around. To get in every cycle all the way around. All right, so we are on, we are in a, the cycle is just continuing. So what is really interesting to do is to go, like right now, 800 years ago, when was the last time that we were going from Earth to air? 800 years ago was the last time that we were going from Earth to air. So that was in the 1200s. So that cycle was all of the 1200s, all of the 1300s. What was going on then? And then the cycle before that was, if we go back to the 4 and 500s. So the 4 and 500s was when Rome fell. And then the 1500s was when the Islam golden age fell. We should get into this more specifically, but I want to show you some practical stuff. But this, you can go back into history and go look at this. There's times, that there was civilizations changed, ideologies changed. Every time that there's a change in element, something happens. And it's interesting to go study history with astrology in mind, because then it becomes really interesting. Then you want to go, oh, what happened in 1200? It was like from the late 11s, all the way 12, all the way 13, and into the early 1400s. So, 1200, I mean, that period of time was that era. So interesting to go look and research a little bit and see what's going on, to give you a flavor of what we just came out of, what, you know, with the earth signs, and then what we're going to be moving into air signs. Okay, now that's the big thing that's going on for everybody, and that's what's going on this week, and this is a big deal. So what I want to do is for everybody to notice where 0 degrees Aquarius is in their chart, because both of those planets are going to be there this week. Okay, we said that. We showed you this one. Boop, boop, boop. And we talked about that. The one, you know, Jupiter expands and magnifies, and Saturn limits and puts in structure. All right, so what's gonna be going on? So here they are. I'm just gonna show you just each one. This is the first house. And let me give you that, and then I'm gonna grab my notes. So I think you can see that pretty good. I'll let you look at that, and I'll give you a little bit more here. So Jupiter, when it's going through the first house, you know, it has a desire for growth and expansion. It influences how you present yourself to the world and take action. This is the start of a new cycle and represents a great time to begin new projects or make a commitment to fresh developments in your life. Jupiter expands the desire to assert yourself and get more out of life, so you'll likely have the more physical energy and self-confidence. You want to do things in a big way and may find the confidence to start something you've wanted to do for a while, because it's in the house of Aries. Aries is, right, is confident. So if Jupiter's there, it's going to exemplify that. All right, so when Jupiter crosses the ascendant or transits other planets in the first house, you might gain insights in the future. This could come in the form of visions or dreams, and you're likely to experience them as intuition or hunches about what's coming. You can look at the current trends in your life and see how they'll unfold, or how you can make the most of the opportunities that you have at hand. So Jupiter in the first house brings a desire for growth, increased self-knowledge. It's a perfect time to let go of old ideas, old attitudes, old prejudices, and have new things. You know, your view of the world is expanding. It's an ideal time to find out who you are, what you can do, and how you can improve your life. So it increases your self-confidence as well. So things to look out for, you know, watch out for the increased appetite, weight gain, exaggerated self-importance, there, arrogance, you know, too much confidence, too much puffing up. All right, so when Saturn's in the first house, there's definitely soul searching, life review, introspection, self-discovery, you know, undergoing therapy, improving health through discipline. The Saturn is in this house of yourself, so it's going to put that focus on it. Finding new ambitions and goals. What else I want to share with you? Let's give you this one too. Bear with me. Got some other notes here I wanted to share. All right. Just got to get me out of the way. Okay. So when Saturn's in your first house, the need for security and achievement influence how you present yourself to the world. So again, it's security in what you want to achieve. So it's going to start putting that in place. So this is a start of a new cycle. Saturn transits that is starting to go into the lower hemispheres of your chart, encouraging you to develop inner strength and to come to know yourself better. So when Saturn crosses your ascendant and enters the first house, you'll have to face the reality of who you are and how you present yourself to the world. You might be a bit of a rude awakening. You might experience the consequences of past actions in a way that brings you down to earth and forces you to take responsibility for yourself and your choices. See, this is all about you. This is both of these planets here is about you. You may feel insecure as old appearances are stripped away and you're challenged to your true self. So this is interesting because, you know, we're going to have like a rude awakening and confidence at the same time. You know, usually it might be both at the same time, a little bit of one than the other. So these are going to be transiting, you know, and look now to see where they're at, because Jupiter has been going through this area this year, but, you know, everybody's houses start at different degrees. So it will be somewhere, of course, within a house. But what I want you to notice is it like in the first third, the middle of the third, the end, you know, because that's, you know, where they're going to conjunct is, you know, where in that house is it? Is it almost done with that house and you're about ready to move on in this new area? Are you like right in the middle? Did you just already start? You know, and you kind of got a head start on it. So think about that when you, where, you know, when I'm reading these as we go through in your house, you know, which one in your house. Okay, next one. When they're in the second house, Saturn, Jupiter in the second house. So Jupiter in the second. Now the second house, you know, has to do with, you know, your securities, your situation. So in this house, sorry. So when this one's in the second house, Jupiter in the second house, the desire for growth and expansion influences your material security, resources, and values. Here's where you might make money. You may notice an improvement in your financial situation or experience the urge to expand your resources. You might achieve this through some kind of training or education, which could provide you with new skills, or your attitude toward the work you do may change, leading to an improvement in how you go about earning a living, so your earning power. With Jupiter in the second, it's often said that you'll get rich because it expands your finances, but you shouldn't bank on it. It's just that your cash flow and gain and confidence now is focused in the money handling and security type of area. You're focused on that. So you're growing in that area. You can learn a lot about yourself through your possessions and by asking yourself why you want them. What do they do for you? What are these things? Why are you attracted to these things? Why are they valuable to you? You know, is it something that you really want? Something that you really want, you know, that's valuable to you. You know, watch out for overspending, things that you don't really need, becoming overwhelmed by too much stuff and hoarding. Now, Saturn in the second house, Saturn going through your second house now is going to give you a process of feeling more secure and achievement toward material resources. So this is like much more comfortable there. Saturn's happy being here, you know, because it's in its sister sign. It's in a Capricorn-based planet is in a Taurus Earth house. So it begins to give form and structure to the things that you discovered about yourself while Saturn was in the first house. So maybe in Saturn in the first house, you really see that you like, you know, like about yourself, something that you learned that's really, maybe you like structure, you figure out, you like knowing what's coming up. So when it gets in your second house, you can plan better for what's coming up. You're now entering a period of stabilization and consolidating your identity. It is the ideal time to build a secure foundation for operating in the world that's based on your true values and true self-worth. During this transit, you should take stock of your financial, emotional, and spiritual resources. You might experience something that brings home to you the reality of your financial situation. You may feel insecure while you're doing the work to create future security for yourself. There may be a lot of anxiety about money or work, but if you put the effort in, you should be able to improve your situation over time. This transit helps you to discover where your true personal worth lies by forcing you to face your deepest insecurities. You have a couple of years to build a strong sense of worth and learn new skills that will increase your self-confidence in how you operate out in the world. All right. So Saturn and Jupiter going into the third house. Jupiter in the third house. So when this Jupiter transits into your third house, the desire for growth and expansion influences how you think and communicate your ideas. Your mind will become more optimistic. You'll be more expanded to positive thinking, which will help you achieve what you want. It's also a great time to learn new ideas, expand your horizons through education or in new skills, broaden your interests, perception of goals. Your relationships with relatives should be good, more expansive, particularly brothers and sisters, cousins. You'll be thinking more positively. It also expands your plans for the future. You'll learn a lot about people and yourself because you won't be fazed by any differences you see between people. This makes communications easier. You're likely to to be able to feel and speak your mind. Now, when this is there, you start to expand in your mind, and then you start to think about things that you didn't think of before, new ways, new ideas, new options, new growth, new expanse. So this is a real cool transit, but watch out for taking on too many projects, running around and not getting anything done, talking but not listening. Right. And then when Saturn is there, Saturn in the third house, we look at which one? There's a lot here I want to give you on. Let's go in this direction. It plays out how it depends on how intellectually focused you are and whether your work involves communication or travel. So when Saturn goes into your third house, it shows where you need to improve your communications and discrimination skills. Okay, because this is communications, so it's now kind of trimming away or going, you're not doing this very well, or you need to revamp that. It encourages you to pay attention to the way you think. So this is a good time to learn how to discipline your mind and discover new ways of expressing yourself. You can bring more depth and value to your ideas through structured learning, which makes this a good time for research and thinking deep thoughts about important subjects. Saturn encourages serious analysis and practical thinking, which will help you express yourself more clearly. See, something like this, you may decide to learn a language. You know, this something expansive like learning a language, but then the discipline of learning a language. You know, that's kind of like a perfect example of an expansion, contraction in a communication realm. Okay, Saturn and Jupiter moving into the fourth house. So when Jupiter is into the fourth house, this is the house of the home. So you're looking at any problems maybe that you've had with your home or family could be cleared up now, because Jupiter expands your perspective and allows you to see the bigger picture. You'll feel more generous toward your family, and they'll provide more support and security for you if you need it now. Land also, land and houses, looking for real estate, a place to put down roots, securing your foundation will all be important in this area. Looking for security through property or family relationships. You know, Jupiter here will improve your sense of inner peace and stability. All right, now Saturn in this area gives it definitely some structure. You know, so you're looking at your fourth house of security, you know, basic security and survival, your need for belonging and putting down roots, it becomes more solid. Instead of it just being an idea, it becomes actually, you know, practical to do it. Encourages you to take the position more seriously and build more stable home environment. So it's not just idealistic, it kind of makes it stick. There we go. You might decide to move house or to make a change in your living situation. Where you live, you may not like it anymore. You may not feel like home anymore. Maybe it's too small, or maybe it's constrictive. Maybe you want to expand. See, might be a perfect time to restructure your living. You got the expansion and contraction at the same time. You may become more aware of your obligations to your family. You might, you know, have to expand your house to take care of a family. You know, there may be something, or, you know, to define your boundaries so you can grow as an individual. You know, these are different permutations of both of those. So expand boundaries, you know, Jupiter, kind of a both, you know, the boundaries, Saturn, expand Jupiter, you know, and then grow as an individual. So whatever happens, it's going to bring that up for you. It's going to, you know, also returning yourself to establish a firm foundation. Could be a foundation within yourself, but it seems to be more because it's a fourth house, actually out, you know, in the type of structure. I mean, it's always inner, you know, all these things always happen on the inner, but a lot of times they precipitate in the outer realm, just because that's how it works. You may become more interested in your family's roots and past. family fate, legacies, your family legacy, your roots, communicating your roots, expounding on your roots, doing root work, all of the stuff with that Saturn in that part of your house. All right. Now, going into the fifth house, Jupiter and Saturn, and this fifth house of love and creations and affairs and children. So when Jupiter is here, I mean, both of these are kind of interesting in this space. It usually holds back. If you usually hold back or deny yourself, this will it will let you be yourself without apology or guilt. You're not likely to go overboard into selfishness or egoism either. You can relax about being yourself. Your relationships will improve. You might start a new relationship, especially if other transits support this. All of your relationships should improve now, but love and romance will expand your horizons, because the fifth house is house of creation. So there's definitely a time of somebody coming into your life, it would be here, especially both of these here. Let's see, and you might meet someone from a very different background or another country. Any new relationship will teach you more about the world and how you relate to the world and about yourself. Any relationship is going to show you about yourself. Your relationships with children will also improve if you have any, or you have any situations with children. That could be the situation coming up. You might feel proud of them, or you might want to give to them, or you might want to expand their life. You might want to help them grow. You might want to have children. You might, do something with children. You may take on more creative projects or going into a new field. All right. Oops, sorry. But you got to watch out for being overbearing or having arrogance, or maybe gambling with money or things that you can't afford. All right, Saturn in the fifth house. Give me that. So Saturn in the fifth house, this is interesting. You could pull in a, because it's in the fifth house, you could pull in a person to reflect a really austere part of yourself. You could bring on someone to hold some value for you. The fifth house is where you take the gifts that come from the past and you work them into some kind of uniqueness. So when Saturn's here, it could throw you back into developing your own sources of love and creativity rather than depending on someone else to pep you up. But somebody else might have to pep you up for you to see it in yourself. So that's where that might come in. It demands that you discipline yourself to work at creating a life that reflects the real you. You may feel more serious about yourself in general, and your energy and vitality may be reduced. It can be hard to feel spontaneous. You may feel unloved and unappreciated. But at the same time, with Jupiter there, you could feel expanded. It's a very interesting mix. You might have only allow yourself to do so much creativity. It's like, oh, I can only be this creative. That's the Saturn-Jupiter opposition here. Oh, I can only let myself do this much into this push-pull. Love may feel blocked, or you may begin to take it more seriously. Now is a time to confront fears and bad habits that make you feel frustrated, unloved, or unlovable, and cause you problems in relationships, or that make you feel uncreative or stifled at the same time. Okay. Now, when Saturn goes into the sixth house, let's see where they're finishing up it going below, and then it'll go above. So it takes on a different flare when it goes above. All this time, it's kind of gathering. And you can remember, Saturn flies through this. Jupiter flies through this a lot faster. Once a year. It's into a new house, where Saturn is here for 2.5 years. A little slower, but right now they've looped around. Where are they in your chart? So Jupiter in the sixth house. So now it's into your work, it's into your health, it's into your daily routine, It's expanding, your daily routine. It's expanding your health. You could gain weight here. You could get onto a health, regime. You could, it's a time to look at your diet, make positive changes. Be careful not to overindulge. Jupiter is wanting to make up for lost time here. I'm going to lose all that weight right now. It kind of just can go overboard. It puts a lot of attention on your work situation, a lot of attention on your work. You might enjoy your work. You might expand your work. You might find you have a benefit of creating a work routine. So the difficult side of this is watching out for, again, like I said, weight gain or self-indulgence, because it's expanding, or maybe working too hard, or liking to be at work too much. Saturn in the 6th house. So Saturn in your 6th house. So again, it's dealing with your work and your service and your health habits, your habits. So it's here, when it's going through here, it's making a little bit of a self-adjustment, a reorganization, where you can change your thinking about your work, maybe creating a positive health habits. You may realize that you might need to be more disciplined in the practical areas of your life. Maybe you really need to learn to budget. Maybe you need to face up to the problems with your health or your job. Saturn will help you decide what you need to do and discriminate between what's useful and what isn't. So this transit is also about digesting your experience on a practical level and sorting out what works and what doesn't. And, getting it done, critically facing those parts of your life. Again, this one is your job, your health, your work, your service, and maybe cutting away the fat, trimming the fat, getting new work habits, new work details, and then putting those two together, expanding your view of work, expanding how you view your health, looking or getting strict on a health regime, getting strict on a expanded new project. You've got to kind of mix these. It's, for everybody. Okay. Now, Jupiter and Saturn in the 7th house. Now they're going above the horizon. Okay, so it was, the first house was me. Now this is you. So when Jupiter goes into your 7th house, your 7th house is about your relationships. So it's a time to expand and improve all of your relationships, but especially close relationships. You can learn more about yourself through relating to others, through marriage, partnership, or business. You can meet someone from another country or from a very different background or age group, which will expand your view of the world or broaden your horizons. Your desire to improve and expand through relationships could lead to problems. You want more space and freedom to be yourself within your relationships, so you'll seek to improve what you have. This is fine if your relationships are flexible and sound, and you'll be able to work towards improving them to meet your needs. But if your relationships aren't working or aren't flexible enough to accommodate your need for freedom, you'll probably move on or have an affair. Jupiter in the 7th house can indicate breakups and divorce just as often as the start of a new relationship or the improvement of an existing one. See, it's expanding. So whatever is going on, it's just going to expand. It's also a good time to get professional assistance, hiring a lawyer, a doctor, a consultant, or personal counselor. If you have to go to court while Jupiter is in this house, the outcome should be favorable. But don't take it for granted, of course. I mean, it's not written in stone. All right. So now when it moves in Saturn into the 7th house, now we've got that Saturn with the balancing with relationships. So we have that constriction with relationships. Reconcile, balance your intimate partnerships, your regular partnerships, any significant partnerships, any mutual commitments, anything you have with like a therapist, a lawyer, an agent, an editor. You know, these are all those relationships we tested now. It's likely to affect your closest or most significant partnerships. Saturn makes you more aware of your relationship needs, limitation, and duties, whether you're living up to them or you're being taken for granted. It's likely to take your relationships more seriously. Saturn brings you down to earth and forces you to take responsibility for being practical and realistic in your relationships. All right. The next one, Saturn and Jupiter in the 8th house. So Jupiter in the 8th house, and that is the natural house of Scorpio. So here we're looking at hidden areas, joint finances, loans, taxes, psychology, deep emotions, how secure your deep feelings are, how you deal with sex, death, and the occult. So here it's going to expand all of that. You might have an inheritance or a windfall. You may come into some kind of money, but it's not, not necessarily, but it could be from other resources. It may be a good time to pool your resources with someone else, or perhaps go into business or get a loan, or expand your relationship or your financial arrangements with someone. Expand your sex life, become more sexually adventurous. You might be willing to share more of the inner you, more of the deeper side of yourself. What else? Maybe getting more intimate. It's expanding, being able to be intimate. It's also a time when you can become more interested in occult or expand your existing occult studies. Occult just means hidden, what's not necessarily put out in the open, which makes something seem dark or mysterious. Maybe it's more profound spirituality or religious experience. Right, Jupiter and Saturn in the 8th. So push-pull with the areas of the depths, exploring your depths, I would say, on there. All right, so Saturn going through this area. Come on. So Saturn here, oops, here we go. Get further down there. There it is. This can be extremely painful transit where the testing of your self-knowledge will work itself out or not at all in these areas, in the financial area, sexual, emotional, psychological, or spiritual. When Saturn transits this house, you're challenged to transform and redefine yourself down to the most basic level of identity. This may involve a kind of ritual purging or stripping away of your old identity to make way for the new. It's about ending old life patterns and letting go of desires and attachments to whatever is holding you back. Once this process is complete, you'll experience a rebirth, but first you must undergo the death. So this can get pretty emotional. I mean, we got an expansiveness and then we got a purging. We got a bit of both, and it depends on where they're at and how long. So Saturn will force you to discipline your desire nature and examine your emotional attachments. This may happen because your desires are frustrated and you can't get what you need or want, or because you realize that getting what you want isn't going to make you happy in the long run. You must get rid of anything that gets in the way of you growing into a whole individual. This is about transformation and self-mastery, and Saturn will encourage you to examine how to use your power on every level. You may experience a lot of suffering during this transit. Your desires and attachments are stripped away and refined until you become more aware of the deeper forces at work in your life and psyche. Saturn won't tolerate superficial nonsense or avoidance of reality while it is in this house. It's not much fun, and you might feel like you're going through a kind of personal hell or purgatory, but it's necessary. Saturn will force you to confront whatever you've been denying or avoiding. You might need to face your darkest fears so that you can finally let them go. Issues around the fear of death, control, and the use of power may come up and demand to be dealt with. Your experiences now could bring questions about the meaning of life and death and the reality of your soul into clear focus, and you may become obsessed by subjects like afterlife, reincarnation, and the occult. Now, this happens for everybody. You know, Jupiter will go through here every 12 years and every 29 years on the Saturn cycle. But whoever has this lined up now, and those two together in this house, is kind of, you know, I think this is what's important for all of us. Where is this happening for you? And what is this, you know, because we got this push-pull. And this is kind of like, whoop, whoop, whoop. This is big emphasis, you know, big emphasis right here on stuff that's going on. All right. All right. That was, I think, an important one. All right. So now they're moving into the ninth house, the nice house, the ninth house. All right. Is it 9 and Jupiter in the ninth house. So that's where it wants to be, because that's, you know, rules the, you know, Sagittarius, the natural ruler there. So here you might have an opportunity to travel long distance and explore a wider world. It could even be, it may not be travel by airplane. It may be travel differently than you know. It's the time to learn as much about yourself as you can, about who you are in the world that you live in. You might do this through education, travel, religious or spiritual belief systems, but the main thrust of this time is the search for something to give your life more meaning and more direction. You might have the opportunity to travel long distances, explore your wider world, expand your horizons. You can discover more about yourself through foreign people or places. You may become more involved with education, either through learning or teaching. You may go back to school to study something new or do a lot more reading than usually. You want to expand your mind. You may be drawn to more profound subjects, metaphysics, spirituality, religion. You might want to learn and have some real benefits, to have real benefits to use in your daily life, it's not enough to just believe it. And with Saturn here, it's going to make you want to use what you find. You know, you learn a meditation technique, you're going to learn it, you're going to master it. You know, Saturn here is going to make you, it's going to ground it. It can expand your consciousness here, for sure, for sure. Anything else on that one? Oh, that one looks good. So when Saturn moves into the ninth house now, this area, again, it's going to ground that energy. Is that where I want to go? Yeah, there we go. You know, it's going to encourage you to investigate and face your ultimate beliefs and then test them against reality to see if they serve your highest goals. These beliefs may be religious or philosophical, metaphysical, legal, or social theories. Whatever you believe, you need to define it for yourself, because these are the ideas and principles that will guide your life from this point on. This was especially important if your experience of Saturn in the 8th was professionally hard on you. Everything that you've been through and learned can now be transformed into wisdom. You'll take your beliefs more seriously and may commit yourself to new goals in line with your more mature perspective on life. Obviously, this depends on how old you are when Saturn enters this house. Okay, the danger with this transit is that you'll be tempted to adopt a belief system off the peg or blindly follow an orthodox religion or something like that without questioning or determining for yourself whether it's right for you. But see, this is where Jupiter being here would kind of opposite this, would expand the look on it, or it could push it into total fanaticism. So if you see people flipping out into just being so fanatical, they may have both these planets here, right in here, you know, with some other aspects. Okay, you may find what fits naturally with your individual path, which may or may not include orthodox religion or practice, right? Don't be too quick to jump into a system of faith, especially if your 8th house experience left you feeling insecure. You know, because otherwise it'll be like a rebound love. Okay, it's not nothing that you really found, it's just rebounding from something. Okay. This transit is good for learning and studying and deepening your understanding of life. This is going to give you the grounding to make that stuff real, you know, where with Jupiter just there, it could just be ideals and not amount to anything practical. Okay. So Jupiter and Saturn in the 10th house now, moving into the 10th house. So Jupiter in the 10th house, moving into the house of Saturn. So here, it's going to want to expand the scope of your professional life and status in society so you can accomplish more. You might look for a better job or try to improve your current work or situation in some way. This might involve quitting a secure job with good pay in order to take up the opportunity to pursue your true vocation. You won't necessarily maybe get more money, but you'll enjoy it much better. Your self-confidence will be high now, and opportunities should come your way. You might gain rewards from earlier work or bring an ongoing project to successful conclusion. Your professional life should be flowing smoothly, or you want to put more emphasis on it. You can also make progress and expand your business. All right. Jupiter here means that you're on your way and that you can take advantage of this time to grow. This caution applies to your attitude too. You'll want to push yourself forward as much as you can to improve your career and social standing, but try not to become overbearing and arrogant. All right. Don't start to believe you're better or more important than you really are, and try to be realistic about what you actually have accomplished. All right, so now when this moves into Saturn, moves into the 10th house. All right, so Saturn moving into the 10th now. This is where it wants to be. This is its home, okay? So it's going to be here. We're going to remember that the midheaven is crossing into when Saturn crosses the midheaven, it enters your 10th house. Okay, so you're challenged to prove yourself and discover what success means to you. Saturn focuses your attention on your ambitions and your role in society, how much authority you have and would like, and the work structure that you're using to attain your goals. You might gain recognition from your work and achievement and achieve your long-term career goals now. But it can also be a time of frustration and anxiety, and you may feel weighed down with duties and obligations in your work, even if things are going well. So it may be a sign that your career or vocational structure is too limiting and not realistic in terms of your true nature. You may have to work harder to define exactly what you want to do and what your ambitions mean to you. If your career or vocation feels frustrated now or isn't working the way you had hoped, it may be because you haven't based your goals on your true personal value and ideas. So this is where I believe with the conjunction, it's going to expand this for people if you have it here. It's going to be this whole aha with your career, profession, business, you know, place in the world. You need to find the sweet spot where that balances out who you are and what you do overlaps with others' need. In other words, your goals need to be socially valuable, and this transit will help you discover what works and what doesn't. There may also be both gains and losses, success and failure. Some people will help you while others will put up obstacles. It's a testing time. Even when things go well, you'll be aware of the possibility of failure. You're taking a leap of faith into the unknown, and results will be unpredictable. But whatever happens, you can gain a more detached perspective on what you really can accomplish and what you really have achieved, rather than what you dream of achieving or what others think of you. All right, moving on. Okay, let's just say watch out for taking on too much responsibility in the wrong areas. Waylaid by duty and obligations, haunted by past failures, or giving up too easily. So with the push-pull with the Saturn and Jupiter here in this 10th house, this would be interesting to see if anybody's really got this like right on the midheaven, or just, you know, moving right into there, what their career is going to be like, you know, as they incarnated into right now with this happening there. Interesting. Okay. So moving into the 11th house. So into the house of Aquarius, Jupiter and Saturn, the house of Aquarius. All right. So when Jupiter goes into the 11th house, it enhances your perception of your purpose, and you'll feel a greater need to connect with others so you can benefit them in some way. You may benefit from your friends now or become involved in more group activities. You'll want to connect with many people, more people than usual, and you'll likely get the full benefit of this transit if you go it alone or work with only one person. You'll learn the most and expand your horizons more by interacting with large groups of people. That's interesting. So you're going to be with groups, but you can also get the most of it if you focus on one person as well. So group dynamics can teach you a lot about yourself at this time, and your friends will be very supportive. Your ideas will be more expansive now, and you'll want to improve the world around you in some way. You might limit this to your local area or spread your influence further afield and get involved in social reform movements or other type of activism. If you keep your perspective narrow, you might just work to improve your own personal tension or situation. And you'll probably succeed. But this is a time to work with others. If the improvements you make to your life don't affect others in some way, the changes probably won't last very long and won't feel as meaningful to you in the long run. By working with others, you can accomplish more now than you could at any other times than working alone. Through others, your influence can spread around the world. All right. And so you want to watch out for keeping improvements to yourself and not sharing the love. Okay. Now it's Saturn in the 11th house. So Saturn over here, you have to face up to the reality of of the way you've been living, what you've done, what you failed to do, and what you should do in the future, especially in relationship to other people and society in general. This is a time to discover what you should be giving to others, which obviously depends on the position you hold in society. Maybe kind of like the 6 of Coins card. If things went well during the transit Saturn of your 10th house, you'll probably feel pretty good, pretty secure, and well established in your position. You may now gain recognition or rewards for the work you've been doing. But as with the 10th house, it could go either way. If you avoided the challenge of Saturn in the 10th, or if you haven't been true to yourself and you've compromised your values, then this transit could bring some painful experiences. This is the moment when you reap what you've sown. It's like, you know, raising your kid wrong. One day they're going to come up and mirror that right in your face. You know, it's like, God, I knew I should have disciplined him. Like, oh. Okay, so Saturn 11 reminds you that you can't achieve anything in the world without others. We're all interconnected and dependent on each other. So this transit encourages you to take responsibility for your position in the community. How you treat others will reflect back on you now. So if you take more than give, or if you expect more than you deserve or have earned, you may become unstuck. Saturn will deliver some instant karma. All right. This transit can help you to gain insight into your expectation of others and theirs of you, and any hidden agendas or motivations behind your social commitments. It's a good time to explore your personal objectives and define who you want to be and become, and what role you think you're ideally suited for within the community. This can only do this by taking others into account. Saturn encourages you to take responsibility for how you relate to people, not on a one-to-one basis, but in general. The challenges here is that your goals and aspirations should serve the collective in some way. This doesn't have to be on a grand scale. It might just involve your friends or other groups and associations that you're part of. Your contribution should mean something to everyone involved, so that you may need to think about what you can offer. What gifts do you have that you can share with humanity? So this is about others, groups, big things on a larger level, the collective. Watch out for failure and disappointment, instant karma, acrimonious breakups with friends. Why does everybody hate me? Oh, I don't want to answer that question. I get pretty, what's the word, irreverent. Okay, Jupiter and Saturn in the 12th house. In the 12th, okay, going into the house of Pisces. All right, so Jupiter in the 12th house. So we're going into the hidden worlds of the unconscious and spiritual dimensions. It's a time for healing and learning about the intangible side of life. You can open yourself up to 3 dimensions now and remove old fears and resistance in order to discover greater depth and spiritual truth within yourself. Your ego will fade into the background, so you might feel a bit spaced out, but this isn't likely to be a problem. This is an opportunity to learn about spirituality and take a closer look at yourself and the world. You have more compassion and empathy for those who are suffering, and you want to help them. You feel more connected to others and can really understand how everything is interconnected. By healing yourself, you can help to heal others. You may want to get more involved in charity work, or perhaps taking up meditation or go on a retreat. You could meet a spiritual teacher, but it wouldn't be obvious. They might not be publicly recognized as a teacher. In fact, anybody you interact with now could take on the role of teacher, and you could embody this role for someone else too. This can be a very healing time. Whatever you need will come your way without you having to try too hard. Also, you want to pass on what you learn now, inspire others. Also, I think it can also expand your intuition. You know, your inner knowing, your knowing of things behind the scenes, your ability to be compassionate and receive information. Yeah, there's some good stuff. And then with Saturn going through here, now how you've been expressing yourself has created the life that you're now living, and it's time to confront your karma. This is the end of an old cycle. So if this is your first, anybody that's your first time around, you know, this is, well, it's the end of that if you started that first way. Anyway, this is a period of self-discovery where you'll withdraw from the expectations of others in order to find out for yourself who you are on the deepest level. So we're putting structure and limitations on that Neptunian, that underworld, okay? So this can be, you know, exploring your depths, looking at your, you know, things underneath. Where did this come from? Is this mine? What is all the sadness all about? Why am I angry? You know, when you start pulling up the lid off of some of those Pandora's emotions, it can be difficult and disturbing, especially if you're trying to hang on to any old identities. It can be, you know, confusing. It can be disorienting, frustrating, as those structures of your life begin to collapse, as the boundaries and the structures of your identity dissolve. I think that's one of the things that we all fears, you know, the ego is, you know, it's fear of its identity. If we don't have enough to identify with, that could be pretty terrifying. That's death, you know, death of your identity, who you are, what you've done. But, you know, if we look at it, that it's, you know, those are just ego trappings. We can constantly make new, right? We're constantly creating new. It's like, you know, those old things in the past don't have to keep redefining you. You keep redefining yourself constantly. So this is a period of self-discovery where you withdraw from the expectations of others in order to find out who you are. Remember that. So Saturn wants you to let go of your past way of doing things, and define new values and ideas for the future. It's a good time to explore what you really want on an ultimate spiritual level, your bottom line. So you might want to, you know, experiment with new ideas and approaches to life. Anything that no longer works or feels empty or meaningless will fall away, and you'll be left with only the things that really matter. Old fears and anxieties may come up from the depths and demand to be faced. This is a confrontation with the unconscious, a period of darkness and entering the unknown. You're being taken into the abyss of identity loss and change, and you can't control, and you might try to resist, but resisting will only make the process a lot harder. Remember that not everything in the unconscious is dark and nasty and trying to kill you. There's good stuff down there too. And you may discover a transcendent dimension to your experience that will become a source of strength and support you through this process. Okay. There's a lot. I mean, we can go a lot. I pretty much sum this up for you in this hour's time of these two planets going through this area. So why is this significant? Again, I wanted you to note, where is the 0 degrees in your chart, or anybody that you're looking at? Because again, these two planets, you know, once we pass this time, they're going to move on. You know, next year, people watching this video, you know, the distance of Jupiter is going to be moving away from Saturn. And in 5 years from now, we'll have the first Saturn-Jupiter square. 10 years from now, we'll have the opposition of where it is now. I won't say it first because they're constant, but from right now. 15 years, it'll be the square going almost back home. And then 20 years from now, it'll be back at a 0 degree point. Okay, so where is this right now, the 0 degrees Aquarius in your chart? Is it the first third? You know, are you new into this house? So these houses that I read, was it in the Capricorn just recently in this house and now gonna do the rest of the time here? Was it in the middle or is it near the end? Like on mine, my 0 degrees is, my house cusp is 3 degrees Aquarius. So it's the 0 degrees is 3 degrees away from moving into the next house. So for me, it's the tail end. So I have to think, okay, I've got this together, you know, and it's in my 6th house. So I'm finishing up and focusing on the work, and I'm putting in the order and expanding my work experience, and, you know, crunching all that stuff about work kind of stuff before they pop up into the, you know, above the horizon. All right, so let me get back here. So just making sure that we got this good. Everybody, yes, good. So does anybody have any questions on anything? Let's see if anything. I don't see any questions yet. Okay, so your homework, and I'm going to wrap it up. Go look in your chart. Embrace that push-pull, and then really get an idea, because this is really cool. You know, this part in history, this week, this is a really cool week, an important week. We've got all these different things astrologically happening, and let it empower you. You know, we are creating history. We are in a new, I mean, this is an exciting time. This is a crazy, awesome, cool spot in history. You know, and I feel fun, and I feel honored to be here, and it's fun, and I want to try to shape it in a positive way as best as I can. You know, it's going to be tumultuous times we're moving in, you know, but our outlook as a humanity and as a group, I think, is very high. And we have, you know, our outreach to a lot of people is at a higher level than it's ever been. And, you know, reaching out to other people with love and with integrity is where it's at. And I think if we continue with that in our minds, that's going to set the tone for this new era that we're moving into. So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox. Enjoy that. I'll post that up, and see you all at the next Astrology Study group. Have a fun week. Enjoy it. Bye.